So let's take a look at the review for test number 2. So in problem number 1, it's already been factored for us. So all we have to do is set each factor equals 0 and solve. So I'm going to set the r minus 4 equals 0 and the 3r plus 8 equals 0. To solve this one, we would just add 4 to both sides. And this one, we would subtract 8 from both sides. And then we would go ahead and we would divide by 3. So our two answers are negative 8/3 and 4. So don't make it fancy. Just go ahead and go through and solve that. And I'm just getting the last page here so I can double check the answers as we go through this. I always like to do that just to kind of verify that the answer sheet's correct. All right, let's take a look at the second one. Here we do need a factor. So I'm looking at this negative 8, and I have to find factors of negative 8 that add up to negative 7. So I can do 1 times the negative 8, and those are the factors I want. So we're going to rewrite that as a plus 1 times a minus 8. Have that equal to 0. We can do that because the coefficient of the square term's 1, so we're happy about that. We're going to set each of these factors equal to 0 and solve. Here, take away 1 from both sides. That's a equals negative 1. Here, go ahead and add 8 to both sides. We get a equals 8. So our two answers here are negative 1, 8. Now looking at number 3, if we're trying to solve this by factoring, we first need to get 0 on one side. So we're going to subtract 6 from both sides. In fact, I'm going to need a little extra room, so let me just write it underneath here. And now, coefficient of square term is not 1, so if I'm factoring this, I need to use the AC method. So I'm going to take 12 times the negative 6, that's a negative 72. I want to find two factors of negative 72 that add up to a negative 1. So 1 times negative 72 is not going to work. 2 times a negative 36, no. 3 times a negative 24, nope. 4 times a negative 18 will not work. 6 times a negative 12, nope. 8 times a negative 9, bingo. Now I need to rewrite that middle term using 8 and 9. So I'm going to write that as 12u squared plus 8u minus 9u minus 6 equals 0. Because again, we're going to have to use the AC method here. And then we do our factor by grouping. The first two terms have a 4u in common. That gives me 3u plus 2. Last two terms have a common factor of 3, but since that's 9 is negative, we're going to take out a negative 3. Oops. Used the wrong color there, my bad. Let's try that one more time. That should be a 3. Hand does not want to cooperate today. So that's a 3u plus 2 equals 0. And now I want to factor out that 3u plus 2. My leftovers are 4u minus 3 equals 0. I want to set each of these equal to 0 and solve. So if I set the 3u plus 2 equal to 0, I would need to take away 2 from both sides. And then I would go ahead and divide by 3. For this other one, I would need to add 3 to both sides and then divide by 4. So my solution set would be negative 2/3, comma 3/4. Now, as I mentioned before in a previous video, if you're getting really stuck on the factoring, you could have also used the quadratic formula here and worked it out. You should come up with the same answers using the quadratic formula. All right, let's move on to number 4. We're going to be using the square root property. So it's already solved for y, so that'd be y equals plus or minus square root of 7. That cannot be simplified, so that would be our answer. Number 5, we want to go ahead and add 3 to both sides. And then apply the square root property. That'll give us a equals plus or minus the square root of 3. And that's it. Boy, I like the 4 and 5 better than the first 3. All right, let's turn the page. So here we're going to have to divide by a negative 3. That gives us x squared equals a negative 25. And now use your square root property. Remember, anytime we have a negative underneath the square root, we have to write that in terms of I. And then square root of 25 be 5. So this is going to be plus or minus 5i. On this next one, all right, we got to use the quadratic formula. And let me just write it out here. Okay, so when we start plugging in, and this is supposed to be a C. My A here is 1. My B here is a negative 5. My C here is a negative 3. And then we're going to work on simplifying. So that's 5 plus or minus. Again, I would recommend grabbing your calculator, working the stuff underneath the square root on your calculator. That was cool. So we have a negative 5 squared minus 4 parentheses 1. That was a negative 3. Maybe I need to write that a little bit better. So that gives us 37. We cannot simplify the square root of 7. On the bottom we have 2. So that's our answer. Now remember, whenever you use the quadratic formula, you have to have 0 on one side. And I always think it's best to have the square term to be positive. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add 6y and 17 to both sides. So that will give us y squared plus 6y plus 17 equals 0. So we go grab our quadratic formula, which I wrote it up here. You should have it on your formula sheet as well. So here my a would be 1. Oops. So put that in. My b here is 6. And my c is 17. Alright, so again, let me grab my calculator. And let's get that thing under the radical worked out. So that's a negative 32. So that's going to give us a negative 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 32 over 2. So we need to write that in terms of I. And then we break down the square root of 32. You can do 2 times 16. Square root of 16 would be 4, so it'd be 4 square root of 2. Or if you have this calculator, you can just do it right on the calculator and get your 4 square root of 2. And then I'm just going to divide out each term by that 2. So I give us a negative 3 plus or minus 2i square root of 2. All right, let's try this next one. Solve by the quadratic formula. So what we're going to have to first do is we're going to have to distribute. So I'm going to give me w squared plus 4w equals a negative 5. Next I need to bring the 5 over. So I'm going to add 5 to both sides. That gives us w squared plus 4w plus 5 equals 0. And then we whip out the quadratic formula. A here is 1. B here is 4. C here is 5. So let's see what this gives us. So this will give us a negative 4 plus or minus 16 minus 20 is negative 4 over 2. But we need to write that in terms of I anytime we have a negative underneath the square root. And then square root of 4 is 2. And now let's just go through to do that division. Go divide each term by 2. So when we do that, that will give us a negative 2 plus or minus I. So that would be our solution.